set time of the week again. Sit back, relax, we got the brain of band. No need to stress in the house, is Van Bellen. The game is windsurfing, you can't yell them or tell them. We get the news, the views, the win biz. The brand's gear tips plus the world's best quiz. Cause PWA, we're professionals without the pay. There's nothing in pole dancing that we won't chat. From tandem boards to a windsurfing cat. It's your one-stop shop for a laugh and listen. Tune in each week or you'll be doing the missing.
I'm getting into that song.
It's getting catchy, isn't it?
I'm into it. I'm into it. Surely everyone's into it. I've got to change the studio this week. There's a little bit of a room echo, but the echo is gone, I'm hoping.
Benny fixed the echo.
Okay. I think we just need to go straight in because we have got some massive news this week, like some of the biggest news we've heard for a while, because Paul Van Bellen is on Instagram.
Oh, is it? God, I didn't know you were going there, but
I know you didn't. If you want to chuck him a follow, get on Instagram. Paul Van Bellen, come on. He's ventured into the social media space. This is the first time for a long time. So
I feel dirty.
You are very dirty, but definitely give him a follow. No, obviously, I'm talking about Jason Polakow, JP, leaving JP.
It's a big week. It's a big week. This is it's big, isn't it? Big news.
Well, what I find is interesting is, you know, how much windsurfing has he done this year? But still, it's massive news, you know, like massive. Like I think of all the guys that are doing the world tour, all the other names, but JP, who, you know, let's be fair, hasn't probably windsurfed that much this year, hasn't had that much media coverage, but him leaving is kind of huge. I mean, he is the name behind the brand. There might be some young kids that don't maybe associate, sounds weird, don't associate Jason Polakow with JP. Do you think that's even possible? That some people might not?
I actually don't know. It's a good question, but JP, it's just so weird. I don't really know what to make of it, because what happens with the brand JP when your signature rider that the brand is named after is no longer there? I'm curious what's going to happen.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we went through the news on one of the first podcasts we did, which is obviously Fanatic is pretty much no more, and it's morphed into Duotone. So they've got rid of the name Fanatic. Obviously the shapers and everything else is still the same, but it's not under the Fanatic name, it's under Duotone name. And there was people mentioning maybe something like that could happen with JP Neil Pride, whereas one of the brands the board brand might go into Neil Pride. And it was just a rumor. There was I hadn't had anything to base that off. It was just a rumor. But then you see news like this when the guy who the brand is named after leaves. Obviously, he's gone to Quattro and Goya. I mean, we're going to talk about that in a bit, because it probably makes a lot of sense for him, for where he's at in his career, where he's living. Lots of things add up to that. So just to put it out there, we have not got anyone coming in from JP. We have not got anyone going in from Neil Pride. We haven't got Mr. JP himself. Maybe in a couple of weeks, who knows? We are just going to talk about it. We want to hear your comments about it, what you think. Is it big news? Maybe it's not.
It's it's super interesting, and it's a momentous occasion for windsurfing, because from where I'm sitting, Jason Polakow was one of the defining characters in the journey of, well, especially wave sailing, obviously, and it's kind of like an end of a huge chapter.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Huge.
In a way. Yeah.
What is also interesting is he's brought back the wings. You know, you know, I know you did a video, which I found, if anyone hasn't watched that video, we should link it somewhere if we can. Paul did a video where you went to the original Strapper factory.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. For anyone out there who doesn't know, because I'm just seeing a comment here from Bob. He's asking, is Strapper still around? Well, they actually are as a brand, you know. So Strapper basically started it was like the 60s. So someone started the brand, And then eventually the business got sold to Mike DeSciascio, and I probably haven't pronounced that properly, but he ended up becoming the shaper for Jason and shaped the boards, the iconic boards in the 80s and 90s. But the windsurfing business is certainly not an easy business. And well, he exited that business eventually, but the actual brand and the shop continued. And I was surprised. I was driving down to Torquay in Victoria. It's a big surf town. And I think it has the most surf shops in the smallest space in the world. There's like 17 surf shops in the space of about 800 meters. It's incredibly competitive. And there's a strapper shop on one side of the street and another strapper shop on literally 100 meters on the other side of the street. And it's full branded. You know, you go in full of strapper surfboards, strapper clothing. It was really cool to see. And you know, if you haven't seen the video I made, I recommend it, just because if you have any interest in the
It's
history.
so good. I found it super interesting, especially if you remember when Polakow burst onto the scene, kind of at Keeper, and he had this new style, and he just, you know, he changed wave sailing, literally changed wave sailing.
Yeah.
And it was on those strapper boards with the wings.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's hard to appreciate if you're a younger person or someone who didn't go through that period of time windsurfing, it's probably hard to appreciate. But at that time, it was revolutionary, wasn't it? Because it was like a big giant leap forward in wave sailing and the boards as well, because they were essentially overgrown surfboards.
Yeah,
those strappers.
It was his style, wasn't it? He just literally just changed the game. And everyone was like, okay, that's pretty much what the top is now. That is what we're heading for, this change of style of wave riding and everything. So yeah, interesting. I'm going to have a look at a few comments, because there is obviously a few comments coming in.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, not only did it change the game then, but if you look at the videos when JP was at his prime, it still holds up pretty bloody well.
Yeah. Have you seen any of those videos recently?
Which ones?
Well, any of those early Polakow videos.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see from time to time. Yeah.
Man, he still look, you know, like when you look at what, like even, well, it's the later one, but About Time, when he's not on the strappers, he's on whatever. But still, that video with the music, I watched it the other day because I was doing some quiz research. Man, that video is so good. It's so good.
It's still arguably one of the best windsurf videos out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Right. No, it's super cool.
Coconut Jam says JP Australia has nothing to do with JP or Australia, which, to be fair, is true. I mean, a lot of brands have moved around, and that's sort of kind of normal. But yeah, it's interesting. I saw that comment actually you sent me. It was on the Windsurfing.TV Instagram page, where someone had took a quote which JP had obviously said somewhere. And it was basically telling you the history, which I kind of knew already, but it was kind of interesting to read it from, you know, Mr. Jason Polakow himself, explaining how the brand. Have you got it? Can you read it out? Or?
I've actually got it right here, so do you want me to read it out?
Yeah.
And also, we are assuming this has come from Jason Polakow. It's not sourced, is it? It's just more like someone has
but it looks like an official quote, and a lot of those things in it I remember anyway. So I would say it seems pretty official.
Yeah, but this is interesting. You know, I think a lot of people had a misunderstanding about the brand and, you know, the ownership. So I'll read out what the comment was. I started JP by myself with my dad around 1997. I just felt the windsurfing industry had space for a hardcore brand. I was looking at the surfing companies as a comparison, and there was not really anything around in the windsurfing industry. We had all these big manufacturers like Mistral and F2, but no hardcore wave brands. I just thought that it would be a cool thing to do. JP took off really well. I owned it for a year or two, and then I licensed it to F2. After F2, I licensed it to Neil Pride, who then bought 50% and then years later bought the last 50%. My dad had some health problems, and I'd rather have my dad around than have a business or money. It worked out well in the end for me. I don't consider myself that much of a savvy businessman. I like what I do, which is filming, getting cool shots, and chasing down big waves, not sitting in an office and working out what color to put on a logo. It was also a good time to sell because windsurfing was very strong. I did great and I was happy.
I tell you what, I was a bit disappointed with the accent there. I thought you might give it the old.
The Aussie accent.
Come on.
I was trying to be neutral, so I was trying to be clear so people could actually understand me.
No, it's probably better. No, but it's super interesting that when he started it, and I've always liked the idea of that, like a really hardcore surf, wave brand. That's what it was when it first kicked off. I actually had one of those boards, not the early ones, but when he licensed to F2, those yellow. It was one of my first ever wave boards. I just finished Olympic sailing and I wanted to learn to forward loop, and I went to my local shop, like Boardwise or Grand Prix as it was called then, and they had this 245 yellow JP Australia, and it was like a little tiny F2 on it, but it was all branded up like JP. I snapped it about a year later doing a tabletop, and then they exchanged it for an F2 Maui project because then F2 didn't own JP anymore, and obviously Neil Pride had bought into it. So
yeah, I had one of those Maui project boards as well. I love the graphics on it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was another hardcore brand, but like a little runoff off a big brand. It's kind of, you don't quite see that anymore, do you? Most people have obviously, again, and that's interesting. He started off JP like that, and obviously JP now has morphed into, everything, obviously. So we should try and it'd be interesting to hear what those guys think. Again, lots of comments coming in, but also I wanted to ask you, we haven't talked about this because we don't like to talk about things before we go online. Otherwise we just do the same chat, and then it's kind of already done. But how much do you think Jason Polakow is worth?
Oh, it's a quiz question. The multiple choice.
Is it? Imagine that multiple choice. What would you? Because it's
how
interesting,
much is
isn't it? Like how much? Let us know in the comments if you guys are listening live. Obviously, there'll be a few people who are tuning in afterwards, but I'm going to read out some comments. How much, as a brand, you're a windsurfing brand, you're the CEO, you can sign Jason Polakow. How much are you going to pay him? Or if you want to get really complicated, are you going to structure the deal where he has to do certain things? Because obviously he's not at that younger stage where he's doing all competitions now. He's basically known for doing crazy trips.
When you said what his worth is, I thought you meant his total worth.
Oh, that's another good question. No. That is a good question, because I also heard, this is not like hearsay, this is obviously true. When he licensed the brand, he obviously had a percentage, I think, per board that he would get royalties off. So you can imagine that was running for quite a long time. It might have only, ended recently. Who knows? Maybe that is one of the reasons. Who knows? I can't say that's official, but it would be. These are sort of questions. I know that it definitely happened. I don't know how long it ran for.
Yeah, well, let's go back to your original question. How much would you pay to get Jason Polakow on your brand?
Yeah.
The thing is, I actually have very little knowledge of what the top, say, 5 windsurfers are making. I'm assuming you would. I don't. And it's probably quite private.
I have a rough idea. Yeah, it's probably a lot lower than people think. It again depends if you're racing, if you're wave sailing. And obviously when you're getting paid by the brand, it comes down to how much they're selling. That's 100% sure.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's the problem these days is how many boards you're going to sell by getting Jason Polakow on your brand. It's going to help, but you need to sell a hell of a lot of boards to pay someone $100,000 a year, don't you?
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question.
But how big? Like, I straight away saw this news and was like, "This is big. This is already bigger than you think." And then I'm thinking, why is it so big? The guy, is at the end of his, not yet. Well, he is at the end of his windsurfing career. All his really, really top stuff he's done already, but he's still that name that you want associated with your brand. So, like for Goya and Quattro, is it a money deal, or is it just he's probably already pretty comfortable and just goes, you know what, I can go up the road to Keith, which he's had a lot of Keith's boards, even probably when he's been on JP in the past. You know, he's always had customs and stuff. I'm sure he's had some JP Werner Gwingler customs as well, but I know he's always had quite a few Quattros or some of his go-to boards. You know, is it that type of deal? Is it like we saw with Josh Stone? You know, he finished his career. He's not really interested in doing that much, but Polakow's still doing trips and still doing iconic, crazy trips.
Look, it's anyone's guess, but I guess also these days with product being quite expensive, if the brand said to you, we'll give you, you know, X amount of wave boards, X amount of surfboards, X amount of tow boards, that could be worth 30, 40, 50 grand just in equipment a year, which Jason might be happy with. He just goes, well, if I can save 40, 50 grand on equipment, you know.
I tell you what, did you see, I don't know if I talked about it last time, but did you see the Stab mag? You probably didn't. You have to pay. I pay like, I don't think it was like $80 a year for Stab mag, which is a surfing magazine. And then you get access to some video content, which is the Stab in the Dark and all this sort of stuff. But they also did an interview with all the shapers, which was super interesting, like a couple of weeks ago. And what I found really interesting, again, the ins and outs are maybe different, but the long and short of it is the brands, the surfboard brands, don't pay most of the surfers. Hardly any of them are getting paid. It's all equipment, and then they make their money from the clothing label. I think we talked about it last time, maybe. But
no, we haven't actually talked about it, but no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So because they're not making as much as the clothing labels and the outside sponsors, but as the surfers were in these interviews as well, they're basically saying, look, they are giving me the tools, and the shapers are saying the same thing. We are doing everything and anything for them. They could have up to 60 boards a year, 30 boards, 60 boards, some people even crazier more than that. And they need these boards, these tools, to get the big wins, to get the checks, to get the clothing sponsors, to do everything else. So they give them everything. That's what they're saying. They're like, we're giving you everything. So there isn't much. Okay, obviously some of them have percentages in company. I think John was one because he literally made Pizel and stuff like that. Whereas in windsurfing, it's definitely more the brands are supporting the riders. It's quite a different dynamic, actually.
No, it's a good question. But obviously there's not a hell of a lot of money within windsurfing companies to throw at sailors these days. So I'm assuming whatever the deal is probably not massive. I think we can safely assume that. This is an interesting one too, isn't it? Because even though people think, oh, he's going from JP to KT boards, well, he's actually been using those boards for quite a while and been painted up as JP, I guess.
But I heard that definitely was a thing earlier on. But I heard, I could be totally wrong, but I heard recently, especially the JP boys have been using more Werner's boards.
Oh, okay.
There was a point, I think, when Cowley, just before Cowley, it was quite a while ago, there were a lot of the top guys were using the KT boards, and they still have the odd one now, but it was kind of like everyone. And then you kind of heard everyone was kind of using the Werner boards. So that's what I heard from Swift and these boys. Again, it's all a bit, you've got to, depending where you're riding. Again, it was the same in the surfing. They're sponsored by DHD or something, but for certain locations, they would get a couple of boards from the local shaper because that local shaper obviously knows the break better. So with KT being based in Maui and, you know, Hukipa being a really specific wave, you know, it does make sense to at least try his boards to understand what is working. And because there's a lot of different styles out there.
It's also interesting to watch the evolution of the Quattro brand as well, because, you know, they started off really core, small, just as a local brand. And then they just sailors started gravitating towards them. I mean, Kai Lenny was one, you know, went from Nash and now JP. So that brand has gone from strength to strength, hasn't it?
I mean, it's an interesting one because it is the same concept as the Polakow boards, original boards, where hardcore wave sailing, that's our kind of niche. Yes, we might make a free wave every now and again or a bit of an easier going waveboard as they've got bigger, but they've still stuck, like Quattro especially, has stuck to that kind of hardcore wave image. I guess getting Polakow on makes sense for that. You know, having Levi, having Kai Lenny, you know, they've got you know, they had, you know, Camille Juban for a long time. You know, they had these kind of hardcore wave riders, and obviously all the core team from Quattro is the hardcore wave riders. You know, for anyone who doesn't know the story, I mean, it's called Quattro because 4 riders set it up in the originally, which was Sean Ordonez, Jason Pryor, Francisco Goya, and obviously Keith Tabul. You know, those are the 4 riders that set it up. And when we did the podcast with Keith, what I found interesting is Keith was originally the accountant. He was like the numbers man. You know, like Sean Ordonez was the kind of shaper who that's what they kind of based it off. And then obviously over the years, that sort of group have split to a certain extent, or been bought out, or it's gone separate ways. Obviously Goya is still involved with Quattro, but he's now got obviously his own brand, which is Goya. And then obviously Keith's shaping for Quattro. Sean Ordonez does a lot of surf shaping. He still does some windsurf shaping as well. And then Pryor is building houses. I don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Don't know. We tried to get him on the podcast, but
Jason Pryor. He's one of my favorite sailors, Jason Pryor. So cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's an interesting. I listened to Keith the Bull podcast. Was it you or Maciek did that? Maciek, was it?
With
Keith the Bull.
Yes, yeah. Maciek.
Yeah. So hearing the early story of how they got started, I like it. It was very grassroots, wasn't it?
Yeah, I love all that. I mean, and just for people, we did have a few comments. Well, not a few. There was definitely one comment that said they weren't really into these podcasts we were doing. They're too long and too chatty and too much banter and not enough straight down. Like they prefer the 10 to 20 minute or the more precise one. So this week, just to clear it up, we're not going to have the quiz. The quiz will be a separate video. I know there's a few people that might be sad with that, but the quiz, which I think is epic personally, it will be a separate video because it was almost 40 minutes for the quiz. And then the last podcast was 3 hours or something, which maybe is too long. So we're listening to the comments. I know there's a lot of you that maybe like it, but don't worry, it's not going anywhere. And we will be bringing back the Maciek style interview with a, you know, rider, shaper, whatever, just to clear that up in the middle of this.
Yeah, because I think when Ben and I were thinking of starting this, we thought, remember the first chat we had, Ben, and said, let's keep it tight with 45 minutes, 45 minutes. Yeah, well, first one was like 2 hours, last one 3 hours. It's interesting how quickly the time goes when you're just jibber jabbering. But no, that's probably a good idea. But to be fair, we've had generally pretty positive comments. So hopefully you guys are happy with the way it's going. The comment here, Adrian, Ben, the comment on Instagram on your channel that Jason sold JP off years ago. That accurate?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, again, I'm not Jason Polakow, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it happened. And but I'm pretty sure as well. Again, I can't say it's 100%, but I'm pretty sure that he was getting royalties off boards and stuff like that, like you would, like that would happen a lot in the old days, with the sales. I remember Neil Pride had the Search or the NR or whatever it is, the Core and the Zone. And, Polakow would have been making money off every time they sold a Zone sale because that was his kind of signature sale. Josh Stone would have made money every time they sold a Core Neil Pride sale, and I'm pretty sure with JP, he would have had, he says on that quote, he's not a savvy businessman. But by all accounts, I heard his dad's pretty on it, or he was pretty on it. So I'm pretty sure that in the contract, there was some sort of royalty thing written in. Yeah. Again, we'll try and get hold of Neil Pride and JP. Maybe it'd be interesting to hear what their version.
Well, did you see that JP actually put a video out where they, discussed this change? Did you see that? It came out today.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll play it right now.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and fans of Jason Polakow, it's with bittersweet mix of emotions that we gather here today to say farewell to the one and only windsurfing sensation, Jason Polakow. For years, Jason has been the face of the JP brand. And let's be honest, we never really liked him. And now, as we bid farewell to Jason, we also welcome a new era as the JP brand transforms into something unexpected and exciting. Get ready for this, folks, because the brand is now known as Just Pole Dancing, where things about to get a little less radical.
Actually thought you were being bloody serious then. God, I was thinking I've missed the video. No, I actually be interesting to see. I think JP have got plans because if Polakow leaves, you've got someone else coming in. That's my theory. So,
but the brand JP though, I mean, can you honestly keep the name, like the brand JP? You're a brand manager at JP. Can you keep that going?
But this is what I was saying. I think new people in the sport, I think anyway, I could be wrong, don't associate JP with Jason Polakow. I feel like it's just JP. I feel like it's been like that for a while. But I think if you're old school, like we've grown up with Jason Polakow as being JP, but I guess the more that JP have gone into the, slalom and freeride and stuff, I think it has drifted into JP Australia. That's kind of what I would say. I mean, is it going to make a difference to their sales and stuff like that? Is it?
Oh, I got no idea, but I guess I would have assumed that a lot of windsurfers associate the brand JP with Jason Polakow, but maybe I'm just not, what do you call it? A good example for however everybody else thinks, but I just thought that was pretty common knowledge. Yeah. I'm assuming everyone listening on this podcast knows, like, has a strong association with Jason Polakow and JP, but everyone listening to this podcast is more the hardcore enthusiasts, I guess.
But I also heard some news that Graham Ezzy is. No, I'm joking.
Where's he gone? He's gone to Severn.
No, but you could think of like let's have a thing. There must be some names which, like, someone's just commented there. Robbie Nash leaving Nash. It's like if Nash signs for Ezzy, it would be like what the. It seems weird, doesn't it? Like if Graham Ezzy didn't ride for Ezzy, it would be kind of weird. Who else is in that boat? Goya. If Goya signs for Neil Pride, that might be the biggest one.
Yeah.
That would be, easy.
I'm going to be interested to see how this one plays out. I don't. Yeah, but. Yeah, look, maybe nothing will change. I'm curious. We've got quite a lot of comments rolling in here. We should try and get through them. What do we got here? It's almost as Robbie would leave Nash. Yeah. Well, he did sell his business, didn't he, Robbie, recently?
Well, that is an interesting one. He has sold it. So again, has he got any sort of lasting or little things still in? I'm sure he is. I think he's still employed. He's still employed. He sold it, but he's still employed. That's usually how it works with a business. I guess it might be the same for Polakow. He maybe had some time period after you sell it where you're still involved. It's usually the way it goes. Yeah,
you'd think so, wouldn't you? I do like that he's brought the wings back on the board, because one thing that I've tried to do through my YouTube channel is to not lose that connection to the past. And I'm not the only one. There's obviously lots of people that have done it, but I think windsurfing hasn't been great at bridging the history. We're always about the latest and greatest and what's now. But I think it's important to not lose that sense of history in windsurfing, because it was once a very popular, big sport, and we're trying to recreate it. So I think not to completely lose that, And I like the fact that he's put the wings on the board, because it's just nostalgic. And it gets you. It's another thing to get you excited about windsurfing. I think you need. Well, I feel like it just helps with your enthusiasm for windsurfing when you feel connected to something, and like like for example, one thing I'd love to see come back just for a bit of a laugh is the flames that they did on those heat waves, those gastra sails, but
they did.
Oh, they did.
They did not the flames on the Gastra, but sorry, I just thought they did the Superstar. Did you see that with the?
The superstar. Oh, which one? The
North
North.
had the original superstar where the star kind of came out,
Oh,
and it
yeah,
was like
that's
a little bit of cloth. Was
Mm.
that not the same as the heat wave?
Well, I guess so, but it's not as iconic as the heat wave, was it? I mean, it was just something
You're
cool
right.
about it. I think hopefully Polakow can get his Goya sails to throw a few little flames on the end just to finish the picture. But
Imagine that. That would be quite mad, isn't it? Yeah, sorry, I was away there. Now I understand what you're saying. Like the iconic video. What was that? Which that video? Is it heat?
iconic.
What's
The
the
heat.
what
What
was
the
Jason Polakow video with the Gastra and the strapper?
Oh,
Is
that
it
was
hot and
that was KA1111.
cold? Okay.
It was just called that basically. I've uploaded it on my YouTube channel as well. So if anyone wants to, I love that video. I watched it 1,000 times as a kid. It was so cool.
I always remember the
But-
one-handed forward as a kid. I was like,
Mm,
how does he do that? It's like all the way off, all the way round, and then lands with the hand off. And it's
Yeah.
filmed from the water, so it's like
it's cool, isn't it? Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. So what else? What other comments we got here? Oh, it's not. Oliver says, couple of million net worth.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think anyone answered that. I don't know if anyone's got a clue. I know it sounds ridiculous.
It'd be in the millions, that's for sure.
No, but no, in terms of how much would you pay?
I
If you were a
see, I see.
windsurfing brand, how much would you pay Jason Polakow
Well-
right now in terms of getting him onto your brand? Or do you need to pay him? Is it just a gear deal? You know, like how much? Like again, I don't know the answer. I'm just interested what people think. Like what value, how much he would bring to a brand. I mean, we're obviously talking about it for us, maybe because we're old. We think, wow, this is like massive news. But maybe there's some young kids are like, who the hell's this Polakow?
That's the thing, isn't it? It's hard to know. It's hard to know what reach he has with the younger demographic. I'm not really sure on that one. Oh, here we go. So Rasmus says Jason is only known by the old guys, making him less value than a top 10 PWA. Yeah. No, I can see the reasoning
But you
behind that.
say that less value than a top 10 PWA guy. But then if you ask the windsurfers at the beach, give me some famous windsurfing names, how many top 10 currently riders would they mention before they mention Polakow? Like if I said to you, name me, you know, some top wave sailors, when's Polakow's name coming up? It's probably one of the first. Like your brain just, again, because we're old. Maybe the young kids don't think like that. You're right. There's a lot of people, sorry, there's a lot of people thinking JP are going to turn into Neil Pride boards.
Well, that would be my guess, but God, are they going to do all that as well? You know, is it going to help? You know, having Neil Pride boards, are they going to sell more boards? Yeah,
I mean, JP's got such an iconic name in windsurfing now, and again, I still think, do those free riders, do the slalom guys, do the foilers, do they think of Polakow when they get that board? I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
Yeah, and also they're big in SUPs, right?
I really don't know. It's not my department.
I think so. I think so. So I doubt many people who are buying SUPs would have the association. It's more the windsurfing. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm actually curious how they handle it. Just from a business point of view, I'm curious how they're going to handle this one. It's yeah, it is. It's very
It
interesting.
would be great to get Jason on the show. I would agree with that.
He's a hard man to get, isn't he?
Matt Jack has definitely tried before. He tried with Pride. He tried with quite a few people. Josh Stone stood him up twice. It's not as easy as you think, this podcasting malarkey, you know. Yeah, it's not easy.
No, yeah. But it's interesting. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, is Jason still sponsored by Red Bull? Yes, that's pretty sure, as far as I have seen.
How much do you reckon he gets from Red Bull?
I tell you what, it's probably not a small amount.
Yeah.
I would say that's quite a chunk, because I think there's, again, I know all this sort of like secondhand, but I don't always know exactly. But I'm pretty sure within Red Bull, there are some sort of legacy riders or something like this. So you've got people like, I guess, Bjorn Robbie Nash. I'm sure Polakow is one of them, where they were there early days, and I'm pretty sure they're kind of got this sort of lifetimey thing. I could be wrong. I'm sure I heard that somewhere, and I'd love to say I know exactly, but I'm pretty sure there's something like that going on with these kind of legacy, which makes sense as well. When I listened, like when I hear that, I think it kind of makes sense for a brand not to just cut its roots from the ones that have supported it from the early days. Obviously, the main man, the Dietrich, is not obviously not there. Rest in peace. Is not there anymore, and he was a windsurfer. So, you know, the windsurfers, and obviously windsurfing was pretty massive back then. They were some of the first guys to get, I think, was it Bjorn or Robbie was one of the first ever Red Bull.
I think it was Bjorn.
I think Bjorn.
Yeah. I remember hearing a rumor once that he was the top Red Bull paid athlete for early on, because windsurfing was coming off the back end of the big time. And I don't know. I think Bjorn was pretty good mates with Dieter, the owner of Red Bull. So
I see a comment there. Why talking about Jason without him? Well, because it's big news. We've obviously got opinions on it, whether Jason's here or not. It's interesting to hear, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe surmise, maybe he comes on. Who knows?
Where is he, Jason? If you're listening, come on.
Yeah.
He's a hard man to get, you know. I've got his contact. Yeah.
But again, like, we're not talking bad. It's for me, it's an interesting topic. I think it is interesting to try and kind of just look at the whole industry as a whole. Like, it doesn't, like, to me, what we're talking about actually doesn't really matter to Jason. It's like, it's just interesting to see that he has moved brands. That's interesting. And what we think as a windsurfing community, is it a big deal? Isn't it a big deal? Does it matter? You know, I think that's...
Yeah. And I think, you know, you and I are in the same generation. And the only reason we're talking about this is because of our respect for what Polakow did for the sport.
Yeah.
Now, I'm still nostalgic for it. I'll always think of Polakow as a legend.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Billy's got a very good point there. You not think? Are Ford cars connected to the Ford family? Do we care? It's true. You know, a lot of the big brands were named after people that started the brand, and they've moved on since. But is the Ford? Is Mr. Ford gone to Mercedes? No.
Well, the thing is, he might be driving a Mercedes, but he's not putting on an Instagram saying he's sponsored by them. So
yeah,
it's sort of different. But yeah. Look, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It's a funny one, this one. I mean, it makes the Fanatic turning into duotone seem straightforward compared to this one, doesn't it? In a way.
Say again. Well,
like, you know how we were talking about the Fanatic getting changed into duotone, and people were a bit, you know, upset about that. This one's actually is trickier, I think.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like from a branding point of view.
I think for certain people, like I said, for me, the JP name has maybe not been associated to Jason Polakow for a while for me. And I think it kind of changed when they more went into slalom, foiling, free ride. That was kind of in my head anyway, like without even realizing it. I didn't have that association. And obviously Polakow, he was still doing cool stuff. I still follow his trips when he went to, you know, Bali and Indo and stuff, and it's cool. But my association wasn't as strong as it was in the early days when he was, you know, fully.
No, for sure.
So maybe that's what they're thinking. Obviously, I'm going to try and get Neil Pride and JP. It would be an interesting comment because, you know, the whole internet in terms of windsurfing, or at least my friends, are all talking about it. You know, my age group, it's a massive thing. So it's interesting to hear thoughts.
Yeah.
And it's also Cabrina. I think Cabrina sold, didn't they? So Cabrina is not. But again, like you said, he's not going on social media and signing with North Kites. Or is he? I don't know. I don't think so.
No, I don't know. I don't follow the kite surfing, but yeah, I don't know. Look, it's not a big deal. It's windsurfing. It's not going to stop the world or anything, but it'll just be interesting to see how they handle it from a brand point of view. I I think that JP brand won't suffer. Jason Powell is not close to the brand like Robbie, Francisco Goya. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, Jason has been out of the main role in the company. He's been a rider for JP for quite a long time, rather than the owner from the early days. And I think that's quite a good comment, because it does, you know, if Goya, he is the company, you know, he is behind the scenes. He is, like, going back to that quote from Jason Polakow about, I don't want to choose the logo color. You know, I'm guessing Cisco is involved in all this sort of stuff still, and same with Robbie Nash, I guess, before he sold it. Maybe he still is involved to a certain extent. And, you know, Polakow has kind of been more a rider, and the companies with separate people, you know.
For sure. I think the other thing too is, and I was talking to Sarah Jackson actually from Duotone a few hours ago, is that windsurfing now, you know, you kind of know what gear you like. So say, for example, there's a JP Ultimate Wave board or slalom board, whatever it is that you like, and you can't just switch brands and get the exact same board, is it? You know, so you tend to find a board that you like and stick with it. No, like that's why I think with the Fanatic Duotone, I think, like, for example, if you use a grip, I doubt all of a sudden you're going to stop using a grip just because it's got a different logo on it. There's no other board quite like that grip. You know what I mean? So every brand has a unique product.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the product itself, people are going to gravitate. Like, that's going to be the most important aspect to them, really.
I mean, it is. What I find is interesting, again, with windsurfing, and I've always thought this, it's like, in theory, if you like a brand, you should follow that designer. You know, that shaper, that sail designer. So let's say the sail designer for, I was going to say Ezzy, but that can't happen because he used to go Ezzy. But when, I think it was Niels Rosenblad or something, you know, moved from one of the big companies to another one, to Nash, did he? Or I can't remember. But in theory, if you like those sails, you shouldn't be associated to the actual brand name. You should be going where the designer goes, if that's what you like. Or maybe it's more that people associate with an actual brand because it feels they're more their style, and it's not the actual feel of the equipment. Which way do you go with that? Are you fit, like, are you sort of a guy who likes, like, there's mainstream brands which lots of people have got, and then you always have these friends who will never buy a mainstream brand, never buy a big brand, but they will look for the smallest, nichiest little brand. And I think even if it's worse, they might even be still loving it because it feels like they're supporting a smaller company. They're more close to the top. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion that I don't have a great answer, because I'm just looking at it from my perspective. I've been very loyal to the sails that I use. I haven't used any other brand but Ezzy for 23 years. So I just, for various reasons, I used to work at the importer shop and that sort of thing. But the way I look at this sort of thing as well is that if you look at most windsurfers that I encounter, it's a big deal to change your board or sails to a different brand, isn't it? Like you get used to, it's almost like you have a relationship with the brand.
Yeah.
And you've invested in the masts, the sails, you know, because usually you're buying the same mast brand, you know, if you know what I mean? Like, that's what generally happens. So people have invested their money and they get used to a brand, and it's scary to think of switching a whole brand and buying a whole quiver. It's a bit of, it's the unknown.
Yeah.
And it's hard to,
I can see that, and especially with certain companies, like Ezzy is a good example. I think, you know, they feel slightly different to other sales as well. So I bet you, if you went on another sale, you'd be like, "Whoa, what the hell's going on here?" It's like you're so used to that kind of feel. But, you know, Rasmus there on the comments said, I used to follow Barry Spanier from company to company. You know, and that's a good, you know, good reason. Neil Pride, I think he was Gastra, Maui Sales, S2 Maui Sales. I think I can't remember what order, but there's definitely, he's been around a few.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. As far as I think now what's happening too is, because of the cost of the equipment, you know, it is obviously getting, you know, it's quite expensive to buy a new board. And then all of a sudden, some of the smaller brands, maybe some of the custom shapers, can maybe offer products sometimes that are a bit more Like if it's a local shaper versus a board that has to be shipped in halfway around the world, maybe they can save a bit of costs on and things like that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, and also the business model of manufacturer to distributor to shop. Obviously some manufacturers are just going direct, or there's all this sort of stuff playing out too, isn't there? Which is so I do feel like in windsurfing it's sort of shifting. There's a bit of a shift going on in different ways.
Yeah, I think everyone's trying to tighten it up. We're not going to, we're not living in a closed society. We know windsurfing is not the biggest it's ever been. It has shrunk since its obviously original days, and I guess it's plateauing right now, and there's more companies coming in. So you have to streamline your business. In a whatever world, you might want to have everything and do all this and keep every name, but at the end of the day, business is going to rule it a little bit, especially for the bigger ones that have got a lot of employees and whatever else. They have to streamline, otherwise maybe they don't make it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it. Andy Wood saying when the logo went from JP Australia to just JP on the boards, it seemed less about Jason. And again, it's kind of been phasing out, I would say. That they're phasing that Jason Polakow out the name, and again JP becomes just JP. We don't have many younger riders commenting, so we can't really get their opinion. It's probably all old buggers like us.
Yeah, we've got Ruben saying, I think Quattro will be the winner in the end. The Strapper logo on their boards will give them more variety.
Do you think that's just for his customs, or you think they're going to bring a Polakow kind of signature range out?
I was wondering that. I mean, if you were running the business, I think you'd definitely want to have a Polakow signature range, wouldn't you? Still got a lot of street cred. And I mean, that, for example, that Strapper video I made, I checked it yesterday and it's got 22,000 views. So it's not exactly irrelevant. People still, they still know it, don't they?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I'm just reading through the comments. Michael Forward, but what happens when your favorite brand makes ceiling fans instead of sailboards? Mistral making ceiling fans, is that a thing? Or am I missing something?
No, I don't know. There is a Mistral brand of fan, but I don't think they're anything to do with windsurfing, but maybe I'm
right. Guillaume says, Jason, with all respect, has got 51 years. That changed nothing for JP as a brand. It's not Jason Polakow. I'm pretty sure 50% of the actual JP customers doesn't know JP means Jason Polakow. I'm kind of thinking that. Like most of them are free riders, free racers, bump and jump. Wave market is so small. Maybe it's just for us, the old dogs. It's kind of a shock. I'm kind of on that page, I think.
Yep.
For definitely our age group and above, who have grown up wave sailing, I think it's quite a big deal. But I can imagine, like you say, a lot of the free riders are probably, it's not even going to even hit their radar.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. I think it's just for the purists like us, Ben. It seems strange, but we're probably not the mainstream when it comes to this. Adrian's, I'd rather pay balls Muller for my brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't always get many comments about specific questions. Like I didn't get anyone who was telling me how much they'd pay Polakow. I don't know what that means, but how much? Which rider, if you could have any rider in the world, you've got a windsurfing brand. Which rider do you pick? You can pick two if you want, but which riders or rider would you pick? Who is like the one that you think, wow, this one makes me buy stuff. This one gets me excited. This one, really, really does it. Like, he changes my mind.
Nico Prian.
Well, look at the views he's getting.
Well, that's it. He's probably actually arguably one of the most marketable ones because he's doing such a fantastic job of creating all the content.
Yeah.
So that's but
people are watching it. The numbers don't lie. Like he released a video, you get decent numbers. This is 100%.
Yeah. No, that's it. But Balls Muller's cool. Like in windsurfing, the image of it is heavily related to the riders, and Ballsmuller has the old school vibe of just not caring what people think and just doing whatever. I really like what he brings to windsurfing. Although, is it? Yeah,
I love the energy. If you've ever met him in real life, you'd think the videos might be a bit hyped up because some people put hype videos on. This guy, I think he's more hyped in normal life. You're thinking, is this real? You see him with he's got a baby, obviously a kid now. I should say a baby, like 2 years old. Is it 1.5, 2 years old? My God, he's on this, those bikes without the pedals.
Yeah.
He's cut the seat down so she can touch the floor, but she can only just touch the floor. When you've had a bike and you're too big, really, so your toes are just touching. And she's in silt and she's on this hill. And I'm looking because I'm like this nervous dad. I'm just like, oh my God. As soon as she misses like the feet, the speed increase is insane. And there is no way she's stopping. And she crashed a few times, apparently. One into a dog poo. Which...
It's going to be a crazy little kid.
Oh my God. Yeah. But like I say, Biles is just energy. I would 100% have him on a team, but you've got to let him go. You've almost got to be a bit like you're going to get some craziness.
More soul surfer style.
Yeah, 100%.
Here's a question for you, Ben. Are you daring?
Sorry, man. I pressed the wrong button.
Dare you answer that one?
How much does a top rider earn a year, like Mortafon or Giacchino? I mean, I can't answer that. I probably could have a good guess, but I'm not sure it's my place because these deals are also not straightforward because you've got the gear side of it, which is massive now. You know how much gear costs. So expensive. And then you've got, travel in costs. Some people have a travel budget. Some people have just a lump sum, and that's it for the year. Some people have incentives. Most people, the racers 100% will have incentives. So if they win a world title, if they win an event, there'll be all sorts of little things like that in the contract. So I think, again, I don't want to speak out of place, but I think the big contracts have gone. When Cowley, I think Cowley signed to JP Pride, and that was one of the bigger ones I'd ever heard, which... Can I say that? It's long enough ago. I mean, I heard, again, I don't know this for official, but I heard rumors. Maybe I'm totally wrong. So
can I take a guess?
You can take a guess. Okay, take a guess.
250.
I think it was 100 from each. But again, this is rumors. I could be hearing it Chinese whispers, but it would make sense at that time of year, how big he was. It took a lot for him to leave a brand that he was super happy with, won the world title with, and they had to get him on. Again, it's a long time ago, so it's not really relevant to what it is now, I would say. But I did hear rumors around those kind of numbers, which, at the time, I remember thinking, oh my God, wow. Yeah. But that was even big at the time, And again, is it true? Who knows?
How does it work?
Useless source of info here.
It's a conversation you don't often have with people when it comes to, their personal income, obviously. But if you're a top, say, 5 rider in windsurfing, are you making enough money to, say, support a family, eventually put enough money for a deposit on a place to buy? I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
it depends how good you are. How good are we talking? Because I can talk from my experience, coming through, and I was not a top 5 rider. I'd have moments of being in the top 5, like in an event, in a single or something. But I'm not I wasn't one of the top names, and it is pretty difficult, even or whatever. Nowadays, obviously, I mean, the top 5 for sure. What are we now? I would say 10, 20, 15 years ago, we're probably doing relatively good. I would say nowadays is definitely a big cut. Definitely. They got to be. Again, I don't know. I don't want to, say any numbers because they're more a guess than anything else. But it's definitely harder now. Like you do need outside support. I think it's getting harder for the brands to support riders for sure. And I'd be very surprised if we don't see cuts, this year, just because the way the world is at the moment. I'd be very, and again, how many riders can you have on a team? We used to have massive teams, massive. And you'd think the gear that these guys were getting, not, it got to a point, I think, when you were riding that, well, I'll get all the gear. Yeah, that's like a given. Whereas I think now it's like, oh, how much gear do you want? Everything's getting a bit more, a bit tighter. It has to be more brands. And let's say a smaller market, or even if it's the same market, I would say there's more brands. So then different brands are taking more of a cut, So it'd be interesting where we go with it, and what is the future of of that market. We've seen, like, in wing foiling and kiting and stuff, like people like Gong, who are direct and having influencers. And they are, again, I don't know the finances, but just from the outside looking around, seeing, you feel that they're doing all right.
Sorry, who are you talking about?
Gong. Have you heard of Gong? So
No.
French, well, there you go. Actually, because maybe you're not involved, but when you see it, it's like a French-based company, and they were selling stuff so cheap. Was it any good? I don't know. But they had this really cheap line. It was almost like you could almost not get the stuff for that price if you were a shop. It was kind of crazy, but it wasn't maybe good. But then they've built up this reputation. Now they've got different lines and different price points. And if you see the shop, if you see their like headquarters, it is insane. It makes you just go, wow, that's like.
But what is Gong? Sorry, is like a what is it?
Like, well, I think they started off doing longboards.
Oh, it's like a sorry, I know. I've seen the video. It's like this mega shop, isn't it? It's all like beautifully laid out. Yeah, I've seen that video.
It's got shaping rooms, photo booth. It's just the whole brand shop, but where they're based. And I find like that's kind of a bit like the Quattro of Maui. That they base themselves in somewhere cool. And they are attracting people like Jason Polakow, Josh Stone when he ends, because they're friends with obviously Francisco, and it's a cool group to be in as well.
Yeah.
There is a point where you're that cool that you probably don't need to pay people. I'm not saying they don't, but like
that's right.
There's certain brands where you're like, well, if those guys want me, they're gonna have to pay this much. But if this brand wants me, maybe the benefit of being involved. And I've seen Red Bull have done stuff like that as well. Like, if you're involved with Red Bull, I feel that Red Bull, maybe I'm talking out of turn, are taking advantage of that, because now if you're sponsored by Red Bull, it opens up doors to everywhere else. And the media involved with it kind of opens up other doors. And maybe they don't need to offer as much money now, because if Red Bull comes and says, we want to sponsor you, but maybe the money's not massive, but your association and the stuff they can get you could lead to other things. So it's an interesting one. And yeah, I can see Quattro being like that in Maui. If you're in Maui, that's where you live. Being able to rock up there, get some custom boards, feeling, Kai Lenny's on the brand. You're talking to I can imagine that's being maybe enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you just made that made me think about something. I don't know if, again, coming from my perspective and just looking at windsurfing over the years, but it went to big, it sort of started off with, businesses starting up, and then it went to big brands, Neil Pride, Gastron, Mistral. And when it went to these huge brands, I found like windsurfing became a bit vanilla and a bit sort of corporate style. Like, you know what I mean? Like it sort of lost its hard edge, and it went kind of very mainstreamy sort of branding, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, and what I've noticed with windsurfing was it went through a bit of a period where it was almost a bit dorky. Like, I found that the boards and the sails, there wasn't a lot of effort put into how they looked. Sometimes they're just some terrible graphics that were thrown on a board, and it's like, God, who even green lighted this? Some weird thing. But what I've noticed in the last probably, I don't know, 5-10 years, is that all of a sudden I think that people are really gravitating more to the image of how they're looking like windsurfing. You know what I mean? If you look at the sails and the boards, they're actually starting to look a lot better these days. The graphics and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just like rather than just throwing on a bunch of just heinous colors and just hoping it works, I think the brands are having to put a lot more effort into how the products are presenting. You know,
Well,
and well,
no,
you know, I mean,
I was going to say, like, attraction in all walks of life is the first thing that gets
yeah,
you. The
yeah,
look of something. It's
that's
the
right.
first thing that gets things going. Obviously, then performance. I am still talking about windsurfing, but you know that this makes a big difference. But it
Yeah,
has to look good.
yeah, but I think that's where brands like Quattro, because they have, for me, they give that vibe off of kind of slightly undergroundy, cool vibes. You know, the graphics look super cool, and people are gravitating. They want that. You know what I mean? I see this as a really healthy thing for windsurfing, because basically people are starting to look for things that are a bit more almost authentic in a way. You know, like they're looking for who are the people that are really into this sport, who are the ones, you know, and that's how that's from where I'm sitting. I can see it sort of moving in that direction. And it's good. You know, it sort of reminds me a bit of like it might not be a very good example, but like, say for example, the skateboard industry. You know, it's super core. The brands that are cool with the kids are usually the ones that are probably the most authentic, because you know what I mean. Like, it's not like Coca-Cola comes in and makes a skateboard and all the kids think it's cool. You know, it'll probably be a brand that some you know, character skateboard started, and all the kids think this is cool. And Quattro and these sort of brands, they give me that sort of vibe.
Yeah,
You know, and it's healthy. It's healthy. It's healthy.
There's a big skill in that, and I think the biggest skill, and I kind of liken this to Quicksilver and stuff. You know, Vulcan was that kind of underground, like if you were a bit of a rebel and you didn't want to be the mainstream, it was like Vulcan came up when I was growing up, and it was like cool to have it. And you know, Quicksilver kind of ended up in all these shops everywhere, and I was like, oh man, it started to be a bit sold out to a certain extent. But then Quicksilver were doing cool little surf projects and cool little stuff, and the way they kind of kept their cool image was quite interesting to me, because you know, some of the brands sold out and then you didn't want to be a part of them, whereas the ones that make the best money, I guess, and do well, the ones that can do that but also keep the cool image. It's very difficult, I think. You know, obviously a couple of different levels there when we're talking about.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting to witness. We could probably talk about this for a while, but did we want to bring on our special guest?
Yeah, I feel like we should have done 2 different podcasts.
Yeah, I know, but this is okay. We probably could have kept going,
because we are going to change it up.
Yeah, well, we could go back to this after. There's probably still comments here, but let us, before we do, play the intro.
And now it's time for our windsurfing special guest.
Actually, before we bring him on, what we'll do is we'll play a video that was presented on television. We have someone on called, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, Muren Tinga.
I mean, we've got to say we are changing it totally now.
Yeah. Well, the last few weeks we've been trying to get him on, so we're just breaking up this podcast just to have a different topic here. But we'll play this video here for you guys, and that'll give you a bit of a understanding of the guest that's about to come on.
Now, how's this for dedication? Meet Muren Tinga, who has windsurfed from Oslo to London to get his environmental message heard. Frankie McCamley has more, because she spoke to him as he arrived along the Thames today.
This is the finish to 30 days of windsurfing. So to be here and to see this, yeah, great. Sail underneath the Tower Bridge, I mean, that's so iconic.
Moraine arrived this morning on a windsurf with a message to the UK to clean up its act.
So I found this bottle, Glucosate bottle, on the Swedish coast. And it's an English bottle. And it has drifted there. So what I've done is I've made this board with plastic bottles I found here on the foreshore.
Starting in Oslo on the 16th of June, he travelled down the west coast of Denmark, past Germany and his home country of the Netherlands, then on to Gravesend, where he met the Thames. In total, travelling 2,000 kilometres. Bringing the bottle back to the UK to urge people to return and recycle their single-use plastic bottles, similar to other countries.
Plastic pollution is a multi-headed monster. It's part of our society, but there are concrete actions we can take, and the deposit return scheme is one of those, and we should implement that as soon as possible.
Out of the water, but still with his recycled surfboard, Moraine is today handing a letter to the Department for Environment.
We must create as much societal pressure as possible so politicians, those that make decisions, make the right decisions and prioritise them, because this is such an easy measure.
The government is planning to introduce a deposit return scheme by 2025, where people will get money back when they return single-use plastic bottles. It hopes to drastically reduce plastic going into general waste and boost recycling.
To me, it is important to show, that we should all do an effort, an extra effort, to combat things like plastic pollution, and you can actually change something.
But with around 200 tonnes of waste taken from the Thames every year, much of it plastic, pollution is one of the greatest global environmental challenges we face. Can this one man's journey go far enough? Frankie McCamley, BBC London.
Well, someone off to Oslo.
Well, that's an introduction, isn't it? Can you hear us, Moraine?
Yeah, I can hear you. Great to be here.
Oh.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, no, thank you so much for coming on, Moraine. How do I actually pronounce your name properly?
No, that's perfectly okay. Moraine,
Oh.
it's Moraine.
Oh, Moraine, okay, that's good.
It looks like Merlin.
Yeah, it does.
And you're
It's
Dutch,
actually
are
from
you?
The Hobbit. Sorry, I'm Dutch. Yeah, I'm Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands.
Ah, yeah, cool. I came across your video, probably a month ago or something like that, and I thought it'd be great to bring you on because you're doing something that's it's a bit out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the way I try to attract attention to the plastic pollution problem and focusing it on politicians, because those are the ones that really need to make the change.
But that's a pretty epic journey. Like, how long did it take you to get Oslo down to the Thames? Basically, that's a long way.
Yeah, it was about 1,600 to 1,700 kilometers. Took me 28 days, so over 60 kilometers each day, and it was great. It was an enormous adventure. I slept underneath my sail, so I didn't have a tent with me. I just had my sleeping bag and the mats to sleep on, and just slept under my sail. Made a shelter with the paddle I had with me. I had a SUP paddle, stand-up paddle with me for when there was no wind, and I'd use that as the I don't know what you call it, like the stick to make the shelter with my sail, and just hole up my board at the end of the day as far as I get that day, and just sleep on the rocks or on the shore and on the beach. So at a certain point, everything I had was full of sand.
That's absolutely crazy. I mean, did you follow the John O'Donnell? Is it John O'Donnell or is it?
Yeah, Jonathan done it. Yeah. I had a call with him before I started this. I thought I need to get to talk to Jonathan, and I had a call with him, and he's actually the one that said, you can just sleep underneath your sail, just do that.
Yeah, because when you were saying
he was a great
that
inspiration.
When you were saying that then, I remember hearing an interview with him about him staying under the sail. I thought maybe this is just a thing now that all you boys who are doing these long distance trips is like, that's quite a cool way. Did you get good conditions?
I don't, well, you get all conditions. So it started out with very little wind, but then I had a few, like, I guess 2 weeks with enough wind in the right direction. But then as I headed down the Netherlands and Germany, I had a headwind most of the time. So that really made it difficult. And you have to, you have the currents, of course, you have to take care of, and then the wind. So I didn't progress that much going down the Dutch and the Belgian coast, actually.
Okay.
And you made your board out of recycled plastic, did you?
Yeah, well, that was the idea, of course. That's the message I want to convey, of course, is that we can use other materials than just all these high-tech materials, and we should take much more care of the planet by picking the right materials and making sure that in the design everything is thought about, and that we're also taking care of thinking about the end of life. So what we try to do is actually use mycelium, so this is like mushroom fibers, and build the board with that. So I had a applied sciences university that helped me out here in the Netherlands. They actually invited me to come over, and I had this idea of I paddled down the river Rhine in 2017. I paddled all the way down. I actually wanted to windsurf that, but since you're not allowed to windsurf on the River Rhine because of the ships, I built a subboard with plastic bottles.
Mushrooms.
But no, back then with plastic bottles, and but I already had in my mind that I wanted to windsurf from Oslo to London, and then Jonathan done it. Well, he was doing it around that time, so that's how I already noticed him. And this idea of surfing from Oslo to London was in the closet for years. And then, I remembered that bottle that I found on the Swedish coast years ago. That was actually from England. And I thought, I need to bring that back to Westminster, to the politicians, because I want deposit return scheme. But like I said, the idea had been in the closet for years. And then I got this invitation from the Applied Sciences University here in the Netherlands. And they said, we're making these boards with mycelium. We can help you out if you want to build a board. And I was like, I've got this idea of windsurfing. Let's make that board out of mycelium, that windsurfing board. But then we found out that mycelium was actually, or the mycelium it was not, the technology is not far enough to actually use it, or the board will be too heavy, and it sucks up water. So if you get any cracks in your board, the core will start sucking up water, and then, your windsurfing board will sink. And I was fortunate enough to work with Ron van den Berg, who is a famous board shaper. He helped me out. So we actually used recycled EPS for the core, and we used flaxen for the coating, and of course a bio-based epoxy. And the board turned out, I think it's about 20 kilos now. So
that's okay.
I guess 6. That's okay. Yeah, so it's 6 kilos heavier than like a conventional race board would be. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
And
do you remember the weight of race boards?
Sorry?
No, carry on. Good.
No, I was just going to ask, Moraine, do you windsurf a lot as a hobby, like outside of this project? Or?
Yeah. Well, I've been windsurfing since I was 8. And then at a certain point, like I guess a lot of windsurfers and windsurfing at sea here. So I actually moved to the coast to be able to windsurf on the North Sea at a certain point when I was around 18. So that's about more than 25 years ago. And then, after that, of course, we got the kite surfing and the windsurfing and the foil. So I actually kite foiled from the Netherlands to England on a kite foil surfboard made from plastic bottles. That was for a kickoff for a petition to get deposit return scheme here in the Netherlands instated, and I got 60,000 signatures with that. So that was sort of the inspiration to do a similar thing with this plastic bottle I'd found in Sweden, which was from England, and I wanted to bring back. So that knowledge on that deposit return scheme, and seeing that you can really make a difference if you get to talk to the politicians through something like a windsurfing expedition, that was the inspiration to try and do that and windsurf from Oslo to London as well. So that's how it all got started, actually.
And if someone wants to support you, what do they do?
Well, they can go to my website, plasticsoupsurfer.org. That's where you see all our campaigns, because we're doing a lot of campaigns. We've got this app we use. We ask people to take photographs of certain types of litter, for instance, and we also make reports which we then hand over to politicians here in the Netherlands on plastic pollution. So we're quite an important voice in the plastic pollution debate here in the Netherlands with the Plastic Soup Surfer. I'm now with I've got a team of around 10 volunteers who help me out with the things I do. Yeah,
that's
but
super
windsurfing, cool. Coming back, because that was the question, of course. Coming back to windsurfing, so I've done all these sports, foiling, kiting, all that stuff.
Oh, he's gone.
He was about to tell us how much he loves windsurfing. That was the best.
I was actually going to ask him, have you seen that plastic island thing?
Oh, sorry. Here I am.
He's back.
Oh,
Missed you. Yeah. So I was saying, windsurfing is the coolest of all surfing sports. It's just so, direct and so much more power than all these other foiling and kite surfing sports. So, I'm really back into windsurfing, and every time there's wind, I take my board out now, and I leave my kite surfing boards in the shed.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're just about to cut you off.
We could easily delete you off this. That's good.
No, but I guess there's nothing like just getting that speed which you get on a windsurfing board. Just having that direct contact with the water and the wind. It's in your hand, and then just full force into that jibe, carving into that jibe. There's no feeling like that in any other of those surfing sports.
I would totally agree. I've been trying to explain this to people, because people are like, there's so many different sports, and I do all of them. But windsurfing, like you say, it's trying to explain that directness, that you're in it. Like, I don't know, it's really difficult to explain. I think you did a good job, better than me. But
it's just it's your total body, and it's all that power, and every inch of muscle you put into it, you just sort of get back in speed, and that's not, you don't get that in the other sports. It's much more, I don't know, the balance is different.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. What's your next plan? Because I was going to ask, I saw something on the news the other day about this massive plastic island somewhere in Asia, is it, or somewhere like this? Have you? No,
I don't know. I've missed
plastic bottles and rubbish, but it's literally the size of an island or something.
Yeah, well, you have different parts where at certain points when there's monsoon rains and stuff like that, you have an excess or a real influx of plastic coming from land, from the rivers, and that may accumulate in bays, and that is, you might have seen that. Yeah. But my next, what I really want to do is, I have a lot of knowledge of this deposit return scheme because of my lobbies here in the Netherlands with politicians, and I've got that board now, and I really feel I need to take that board and go to the next country. So finish it off in London, and then next summer windsurf from London to, say, Paris, or maybe Madrid, which is inland, of course. But
I was going to say, how are you going to do that?
No, but Paris, you can just windsurf up the Seine and then start up paddling for the last 200 kilometers. So as I was thinking, I'm preparing something like that for coming summer, because I mean, just taking your board, having everything with you on an expedition like that, I mean, it's the greatest thing ever. I've been in canoes, I've been on bikes and doing expeditions like that, been on paddle boards, but being at sea on your surfboard, it's and doing something like that, it's it's the greatest thing I've done so far.
This is actually a good topic. Oh, sorry, Ben, you want to finish?
No, I was just going to say, because a few people are asking, did you document your journey from Norway to England?
We did, but we did it in Dutch. We've got this podcast about it, and we've got on my Instagram, you can see all these different videos we made, but this time we didn't make a documentary. So on my previous surfing expeditions, which was on kite surfboards and paddle boards and stuff like that, which were record attempts as well, on boards made from plastic, we did make documentaries, but this time it was just too cumbersome, I guess, too much work, too much effort, because because of the weather, I guess. If you're on a paddleboard, you make a documentary, you can actually make appointments with people along the way, because you know how far you'll get. But on a windsurfing board, 30 days, it's the weather that depends. You're dependent on the weather, of course. And there's all these archipelagos which you cannot reach with a car or any other way. So for a documentary maker to follow me, he would have to be on a boat and just be literally behind me. And we didn't have the money for that. And I didn't want it either, because I wanted to do it myself and not have some boat follow me constantly.
I've often thought about doing a camping trip or some overnighter windsurf trip, just sail across a big lake or some body of water. Is there anything that you can think of that might not be obvious for anyone who's considering doing an overnight windsurf trip? I mean, obviously you need enough food and water and this sort of stuff, but I mean, in reality, when you do something like this, was there anything out of that you didn't, like when you started doing it, you realized, I didn't think of that at the start, that was kind of...
There's this anecdote. There's this... I used to live in the north of Holland and I used to go windsurfing with my father when I was, say, 17, 16. And there was this island in front of the coast, the Dutch coast, like the sand island. And we had this dream to once windsurf there to that island. And we had to take into account the tides and everything. And we never got around to doing that. We just never got around to, because the conditions were never right, It was always like the conditions are not right. And last summer, so I just windsurfed past that island, and I didn't do that. That was only a 5-kilometer crossing, right? And now I did 120 kilometers in that one day. And thinking back on that, people are often just, when doing things like that, and of course you have to be cautious, but most important thing is just, conditions are never right. Just do it, that's the don't stop. What you like you said, the obvious things you can think about, and of course you need to make sure that you have a watertight bag with you and stuff like that, but you can think of that yourself. But the thing that hold people back most of the time is that they start waiting for the perfect conditions. Should be that and that wind, otherwise I'm not going to cross, or I'm going to be scared of the tide, or stuff like that. And the most important thing is just do it.
I'm in. You motivated me. you'll see soon on the channel. I'm going down Portugal because it's the right direction wind. I reckon I could get quite a long way. I reckon I could get to Spain.
I don't know. I don't think it's the right direction. I think you're going to. It's better to come from Portugal and go down, go to France or England.
Yeah, but if I go from like I'm in Sagres, I could go from Sagres to Spain. Easy.
Nazaré.
Windsurfer gone missing.
Nazaré, go to Nazaré.
But I was thinking, Ben, it would be cool. I mean, some people would prefer to do it by themselves for the challenge, but if you had a group of friends together and you just did a multi-day trip down the coast, I mean, that would be super cool.
Definitely,
because when you windsurf, you head out to sea, or where I live here, you sail out maybe a kilometer max or two, but of course you turn around and come back. But there's this thought where you just think, well, what if I didn't turn around? I just kept going,
you just exactly. Yeah.
Obviously here you just end up, but there is something cool about that.
Take a watertight bag, what you call it, like rucksack with you, and the bag and the bag for on your board, and you'll have enough. And don't worry about the weather too much. Just go. And I guess that was the most beautiful thing. No, I'm serious, because the weather changes all the time. Of course, you shouldn't be out there when have enough time. I guess that's the thing. The most beautiful trips, the most beautiful stages I did were not because I had a great broad reach or something. Of course, it's cool to just speed down for 100 kilometers. And 100 kilometers, the full day, big waves, going 35 kilometers an hour, great for your surfing experience. But the most beautiful experience is much more getting up early in the morning with nearly no wind, and just being on the board in those conditions when you're never on the board, because you never go out when there's no wind, But now you're there, and now you see the landscape in a whole different way, and you're doing it windsurfing, and you get to do all these techniques, or you get to feel your body in a whole different way than just being on that broad reach, which you want to be in, because it's the coolest thing.
I mean, I grew up like Olympic racing and doing a lot of longboard stuff, and it's so cool when you're tacking up the coast, you're going out, like longboarding is kind of way out of fashion now. But I have recently, maybe I'm just getting old, I have recently been going, you know what? I don't know if it's like nostalgia and I get it and I'm going to be over it, but
it's coming back. It's coming back,
for
Benny.
Things like this. Yeah, I have friends now because of this trip. I have all these guys. They're old guys. They all come up to you and they go like, "Yo, well, you longboarding. We're doing that on the sea. We're going for day trips with our boards. They're doing it. So yeah, definitely go do it."
What's the backup plan if you're way off the coast and your mast breaks or something like that? What was going on there?
Yeah, well, so I had this GPS
EPIRB
thing. No, not an EPIRB. It was called Spot. So it's like a commercial, commercial GPS, and you have an SOS on that as well. So which you can always use. Of course, you have your telephone with you. So most of the time you have reach. You can just use your telephone most of the time. I had a flare with me. I had a compass with me, and I had this just professional, what you call it, like navigation apps, so I could always see where I was. So even if I had no cellular reach, I could still see on my map where I was and how to get back. Just see my course and coordinates.
So how far, when you were traveling down, how far off the coast would you be on average? Like, were you just sort of hugging the coastline generally, or?
Oh, it used to be like, say, 5-6 kilometers from the coast, because the coast
still a fair way.
It is, yeah. So, but I did 20-30 kilometers out the coast as well. You don't see the coast at all anymore. So,
wow.
But at a certain point, you're not scared of that anymore, because you're sort of, you get totally dependent. You trust your material, as you trust your body, you trust yourself because of the experience, and you trust your material. So it can be in huge waves and huge wind, and just feel very confident.
I have one question.
Okay.
I've got lots of questions, but one question in particular. Mast. I was thinking about doing some long distance stuff here the other day, weirdly. And do you have like a mast with more epoxy in it, like rather than the more carbon? You didn't think about that?
Well, Severn, I've got good contact with Severn, and they sent me this turbo. Or they were very nice to me, and so I got a Severn mast and the turbo 8.6. So I had a really large sail, a turbo 8.6 for light wind conditions. So I had this blue, the 490 blue. I don't know how much epoxy or carbon is in there. Sorry.
No, just
So I
wondering.
just use
Because I
that.
thought I was worried, like the high carbon ones. Maybe I don't see many mass snap, but you do see them snap. And I thought, if you're 20K off, oh God, can't.
Well, yeah, I guess. But then on the other hand, like I said, you have your board with you. You know, it's not like you're going to drown or anything. You're going to, and once you're on a trip that you know that's going to be 30 days. It's not like I have to be back for my job on Monday or something, and if my mast snaps, I won't be there. It's like I need to get out of this situation, and I have all the precautionary stuff with me, so I'll just call up, and then it's all part of the adventure, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is the excitement bit. I'm just reading about the blue.
Yeah, so am I. It's actually says that they call it Apex mask, and they've got a layer of fiberglass over the top for a bit more impact resistance or something.
Okay,
well,
I was just wondering. Anyway,
yeah, no, look, it's amazing, Moraine, and I definitely would like to follow in your footsteps at some point. It's something that I've been wanting to do because I have fond memories as a kid using my dad's longboard, and you get that nice glide sensation in light winds. In light winds, they're actually real. I mean, you can use them in strong winds, but in light winds, you get a great sensation out of them too. And they're just so stable. You have the other thing that I've totally forgotten is how well upwind you can go in those things. Because I just ride shortboards now, and if I got on a longboard, I'd probably be shocked at how far upwind you can go with it.
Yeah.
All right,
for sure. Go longboarding.
Right,
No,
must
great.
go search eBay.
Yeah, exactly. Get an old Mistral Equipe.
I've got some. Yeah, I got some good memories of all the different ones. I like that. Look, your Keep was good. Keep was good.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll let you
thanks.
go.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Moraine.
Thank
and
you,
for
guys.
anybody interested, it's plasticsoupsurfer.org.
Yeah.
If you want to
Go have a
learn
look.
more.
And on YouTube, you can find all these documentaries we made. I actually windsurfed, so wind foiled from Le Havre in France to Scheveningen in 2018. We made this great documentary on that, on a board made from 3D printed recycled material. A great documentary. It was screened on National Geographic. You can find it on YouTube, Plastic Soup Surfer.
And just one last thing, Morena, we've got a comment here. Why is it that every Dutch person that I've ever met has been a little bit crazy? Can you tell us that?
Because we smoke too much weed, I guess.
When you said you're building a board out of mushrooms, I was thinking.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, man.
Okay, guys.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Moraine. See you, mate.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Oh, well, that was a bit of a weird segue talking about from JP to that, but that was interesting.
I tell you what, it's weird. Maybe because you've been mentioning he's coming on, my brain started thinking. But I genuinely I've been eyeing it up since we've got here, because the guy who has the local surf school here, Win for All, and a few of the other boys here, they literally just go out to sea, blast over to Lagos, which is like a half an hour drive in the car, and come back without anything. You're like,
wow.
I'm like, are you? I've always thought it was a bit crazy, but actually, I'm now thinking I'm going to start doing some long distance. It's just the gear. Well, what do you do on a foil? Because the foil, you can't get in close, you can't wobble. No. So maybe then the longboard does seem the best thing, but
it's simpler. The foil is, well, I don't know. I don't foil, but I just think it's added complexity and more things to go wrong. And yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of a longboard. It's easy. And also the other thing with a longboard is you can pack gear onto it, which you're going to need to do, right?
Well, I really think I could sail from here to Tarifa.
Okay. Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, people do all sorts of crazy things. But no, I think, it's something that, especially as you get older and you're sort of looking for other things to do with windsurfing, I'm into it. I reckon it'll be cool. Like, because who doesn't like going on a camping trip And you're mixing windsurfing with camping, and then you could just like roll up at some deserted beach and make a fire and just talk shit, and then wake up in the morning and sail off to the next day. I mean,
especially with a few of you. I mean,
awesome.
I always the thing I always find it interesting, which maybe it's not so stupid anyway, but they always do it on their own. Like Jonathan done it, like Merlin there, like they always seem to go on their own. Whereas for me, I kind of want a few of you.
Well, yeah, I think it depends on the type of person you are, isn't it, with that?
Yeah.
And that actually, just for anyone listening here who's interested in this, we've got a Henry. Actually, I'm just checking my phone to make sure I'm getting his name correct. Henry Cartwright, who's been getting, I was going to say tens of thousands, actually up to hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube. Maybe some of you have seen him, who's sailing from across the English Channel. You may have seen it, and we've contacted Henry, and he's very keen to come on this podcast. So we'll continue this chat.
Yeah, I'm going to get more into it as well. So when Henry comes on, I'm going to have some loaded questions. I might have even done my first mission. I might already be lost to sea by then.
You're going to make longboarding cool again, Benny.
I'm a big longboarder. That's my problem. Like, people know me more recently for wave sailing, but my roots is full longboarding on a lake. Yeah,
cool. Well, is there anything left to say about this whole JP saga before we wrap it up? What do you think?
I think what we need to try and do is get someone with some inside knowledge. Again, there's not really a lot to talk about, but just interesting anyway to get these type of brands or riders on. So we're gonna do our best. Obviously, a lower classic is coming up. There's quite a lot of news around the beaches at the moment. The lower class coming up. There's been a few injuries, but we'll touch on that probably next week, because that's just before the lower classic. The World Championship's going to be decided. Then just after that, the racing world title will be decided in Japan. So there's a bit of like PWA type IWT news, I think, for that. And then obviously, yeah, there's a fair bit of stuff going on. And also, as we always say, leave us some comments. We're going to go through some comments in the next couple of weeks. If you're waiting for the quiz and you missed what we said earlier, the quiz is not happening within this podcast. It just takes too long. So we're going to do a standalone podcast just for the quiz. We might even do celebrity guest quiz where we bring in riders and we challenge the riders, because obviously we can make the questions a bit harder for some of the riders because they know these riders inside out and they see them every day. Whereas I think you guys are home. But again, let us know. Any comments is always useful, good and bad. We had a couple of bad ones last week. They said we were talking too much.
There's only one comment that I saw that was negative, wasn't it? So
there was only one, to be fair.
You can't get 100% positive.
But I'll just say there was one comment saying, it was a bit too long and we were just chatting shit and he wanted more specific. And as I said to him, and I'll just say anyone else, if they are thinking that, if they're probably not listening now. The thing is with Windsurfing.TV, it was always meant to be a channel. And with a channel, you have different programs, and the different programs don't always suit everyone. You tune in for the programs you like. So if programs disappear or little segments that you liked, you can always say in the comments, you should bring that back. That was good. Or, yeah, that was shit. It's just a good gauge of what people are liking. I can usually tell from the numbers in the views. But also when you look at just views, you can also get warped because maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people really like a section, but everyone else doesn't like it. It's still worth doing it, even though the numbers are not big. And then you might get something with loads of numbers, but it's a different appeal. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, no, but I think this is good also because things are constantly coming up in windsurfing. So, for example, this JP thing, if we weren't doing this, it just wouldn't be talked about much on a channel like this. So I think it's valuable. Good for documenting what's going on.
I've got to answer these comments because I see someone mention Bala Lake. That is where I grew up. Just thought my parents used to have a caravan there. I used to go there like every weekend for when I was like 7, and then I started windsurfing when I was 9. And then that was my home patch. It's like an hour and a bit from me. But I wonder if there is many. I mean, back in the day, there was so many people up there. It's like the gorge. It's like the Welsh equivalent to the gorge.
Yeah, right. Okay, I've never heard of it.
You've never lived, mate.
No, it's not that good.
So good. The southwesterly wind funnels down the valley.
Yeah, nice.
The gorge.
It's hard to beat the early days when you start windsurfing, isn't it? Because you just get so hooked.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny because like I look back then and the feel of the place. I went back actually. I was going to do a video going back to Bala Lake because it's kind of funny. But when I was there, just as it was like slowing down a bit, I guess it must have been 25 years ago, but it was still slowing down compared to what it was like in the early 90s. And someone wrote this article that basically said it was the UK's equivalent to the gorge. And he wrote this article. It was in Windsurf magazine. There was pictures of me. I was like a young kid doing some jumps, and it was obviously a windy day. And we were there like the summer after or whenever it was. And we met these, I think it was Canadian or American. I know I shouldn't mix the two up, but it was a long time ago. And they were like, "Oh my God, we read this article in the magazine, and we're here because," I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe that article was a little bit exaggerated because." Although you needed a southwesterly wind that it does funnel down, it's like you still need that weather systems to be coming through at that time of year. Whereas the gorge, I guess it's like cold air pressure and hot pressure, and it pulls it through. Anyway, it just made me laugh at the time. I'd have to break it to them that there might not be any wind for a couple of weeks. Classic.
You talking about all this is actually, before I go, I've just got to quickly share this because that's probably the only time that it's, well, one of the few times this is going to be relevant. Let me just quickly, where are we? You talking about sailing on a lake. I did exactly the same when I learnt, and I learnt on a longboard as well. Hold on a second. Bear with me, guys. This is all completely unplanned. Where do I present a background? Does it go background? Where do I put the photo, Benny?
It's very difficult on this. You can't just
add
a picture. It's
you can't.
Well, you can, but it's like a slide. It has to be in a PDF or something weird.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. If it's going to
range, I remember it was difficult.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You better to share the screen. Just share screen. Open it as an image and just share the screen.
Bear with me. So we're here. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'll get there. So we got share screen. Present. Share screen. Okay.
It's better be good.
It's really not that great, but okay. Can we see my screen?
I can. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, for a bonus point, what is that board? That's a Mistral.
So this is 1991. I worked it out and I looked at the date. I was 13 years old. That was my dad's gear. No harness. That boom, the grip on it was like sandpaper.
Super light. Mistral super light.
No. You want a multiple choice? No. It's you want to tell what it is?
Pandera.
It's a Mistral Malibu. It's called. And remember the boom where you had to tilt it down? You put it up against the mast and then tilt it down to tighten up, and it was just a miracle if you could actually get it pretty tight.
Yeah.
The mast.
If you got it too tight, snap your mast.
Yeah, the mast was full fiberglass, 100% fiberglass. So you'd rig up and you just get splinters in your fingers from. Do you remember that?
I do.
Did you ever? Yeah, totally yeah. So you're literally getting finger splinters, like glass fibers, in your hands before you go windsurfing, and then you're grabbing the boom with freaking glass fiber. I mean, it's just weird to think of it now, but geez, I was hooked. And that longboard, I mean, it was you could get in the back straps and get that thing going. It was.
I just look at the comments. Roffo Wave. That's what I remember for the mast. My dad. I remember when he got his first Roffo Wave mast. It's like the most unbreakable mast. I think you could, if you could bend it, you could bend it around to touch itself. I think it was.
Oh, really? Yeah. Wow. So yeah. Anyway, that's fond memories. Yep. Thanks. Cool, Benny. Well.
Oh, there
we
you go.
have addressed the JP saga. I'm sure it won't be the last that we talk about it, because it'll be interesting to see what happens with that brand. Maybe nothing. Maybe it'll just continue on, or maybe it'll change. We'll see.
Yeah. And let us know about the quiz. If I've got a question, you want celebrity quiz where we bring in, pro riders and they're part of the quiz going against one of us. Obviously, you guys at home joining in the quiz, which is actually, is it Christian? I got the leaderboard here somewhere. Christian, 9 points last week. We can do that. Or anything else. Do we do an old school quiz, just old school, and then we just advertise it to the old school in Facebook group?
I personally, I think it's good to have a mixture of celebrity windsurfers and the audience, because it gives the audience an opportunity to beat the celebrity windsurfers and to beat that. You. And
that's
kind
of what I was thinking.
Yeah, and the guys that are commenting, everyone who's listening, they're all bloody expert. A lot of them are experts on windsurfing. I'm surprised at all the comments. They know a lot more than probably we do, some of them. So
Hang on, Billy just said, did I have a green or a pink one? We had both, actually. I seem to remember. We definitely had a green one. But did you used to have an alloy mast? I had a pre-bent alloy mast because it just bent.
No, because what happened was that the fiberglass was old school, and then the alloys came out. But from my memory, it was a very limited time frame that those things because they were snapping, and then people were just it was probably like a year or so of aluminium, and then it just went to carbon. Carbon was the big thing. I remember the Neil Pride mast. What do they call them? C60s or whatever they were called.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I had a
Arrows mast. I had.
Actually, I've got a quick story I'll share with you guys. I've been asked this a few times, so it's probably good for me to clarify this. But my name's obviously Paul Van Bellen, and if you're in the Netherlands, you may know of a shop called Van Bellen Surfing. It's a windsurf shop, and it was actually started by my uncle in the 70s, and it's he sold it in the 80s, but they kept the name because the brand.
Oh, like Polakow.
Exactly, yeah, but exactly. Except he doesn't work in any other shop now. But what happened was when I was a kid, I used my dad's gear, and it was it was okay at the time, but people were getting onto short boards, and I had the long board, and it was a bit frustrating. It was kind of like I wanted better gear. And one Christmas, my uncle Lo, that's his name. I'll never forget it, but. Christmas, and he sent me, because I had the gear I had was all pretty basic generally, but he sent me it would have been 1993, 92, and hopefully some of you guys will remember this. He sent me a Gastra Slalom Foil Pro sail. Do you remember that sail?
I do, 100%.
Yeah, it had like 4 cams on it, and that thing was like, it was all. Now, if you sailed it, you'd probably think it's pretty crap. But at the time, it was cutting edge. Anders Bringdahl was fighting Bjorn on that sail. And I literally had a fiberglass mast, a crappy boom, crappy everything, and a freaking Gastra Slalom Foil sail. It was a 5.7. And then I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, wow, this is the best present ever. Like, it was so good. And but then what happened was I said to my dad, I said, Dad, look, I've got this sail, but the fiberglass mast is not going to cut it. Like you've got to get the carbon mast. Well, of course, then we went to the shop, and the carbon mast cost a freaking bomb. But we somehow convinced the shop to give us some kind of demo second-handy kind of mast. And anyway, unfortunately, I don't have a picture with that sail, but for any of you out there who sailed in that period, you might share my excitement, because that was such a cool. It was the only time I've ever had a cambered slalom sail. After that, it was all just wave gear. But
the weird thing was, like, back in the day, like now it feels so strange, but speed sails were a thing. Like, we were on the lake.
Oh.
And I remember having like a 4.4 speed sail, but the foot was like like a big square foot. And it was like, that was what you kind of had. And then I also remember when the twin cams came out, there was a Gastra Power Slalom or something like that. Was it a twin cam, but they were like open?
Oh yeah. Oh no. The Neil Pride had that. What were
Yeah, the
they
RAF cam.
called?
RAF cam. You can
Oh,
take
was
them
that was
off.
it called? Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
four-wheel drive and
the 4-wheel drive. That's right. Remember the 4-wheel drive, and the whole marketing of it was like, you can blast, one day
then
and just
take 'em off.
charge, and then charge a keeper the next.
No, bring it back. Bring it back. I actually love it. I wonder what happened to them RAF cams. They still work.
Oh God, there was so many gimmicks. There was all these gadgets and gimmicks. But it was cool. But the sales were good. I'm just looking at the comments. We started a whole other conversation here. Yeah, so
Rad
there's obviously
wave.
a full, the rad wave. Yeah, what was the deal with the wave slalom sales? I think they were just trying to cover all bases with one sale or something.
Yeah, it was when wave sailing was starting to come in. Like before then, it was just slalom, bump and jump. And maybe that's where we've gone wrong. Maybe that's still the main market, blasting around, jumping.
Well, it is, but I think the thing is now with the sales, with the wave sales and those kind of crossover, they're so much more stable than they used to be. So you can get away with those sales, and they have they're just way better, aren't they?
I mean, again, I was having a conversation with Simmer the other day, and it was like, with one of the shops in France. I was like, "What is the biggest selling sale? What are people buying? And it obviously depends on where you are in the world and what it is, and what type of sailor's buying it. Like, who's buying wave sails? Because probably a lot of wave sails are not going to wave sailors. Weirdly, they probably use the storm sails because they are so stable now. And there's some specific wave sails that you wouldn't want as a storm sail, but then there's other wave sails which are way more stable and a bit different. Maybe not as good in the wave, but great as a storm sail and as sort of bump and jump wave sail.
But what is I'm assuming the biggest category is like free ride, isn't it? Or
well, it depends. Like I was speaking to someone in the south of France, so I guess it is, but they were saying they sell a lot of small wave sails, but I can't remember where my conversation went with him because I can't remember exactly what I was asking. So maybe it wasn't the biggest selling sail, but I guess down that way they have a lot of wind. They have a lot of wind, and it's quite flat.
Yeah. No, that's interesting, isn't it? It's I know the full-on race sails, they're not a big seller, are they? I mean,
no, not in terms of compared to free ride on stuff. And again, it depends on the brand. Like Simmer are quite strong, obviously, in wave sailing, and their free ride market is great, but it's probably not as the image. Even though they had Bringdale for years, doing the racing and stuff, and then you've got other brands which are probably more like Challenger. They'll be their whole marketing and their riders is mainly racing, even though they have wave sails and they do it, their image is now for racing. And then you've got obviously brands that kind of cross over everything in terms of perceived image.
Yeah.
It's like a quattro to the slalom board. Would you buy it? It first has to get proven. You have to have riders on it. It takes a while to build up that team to give it the image. Whereas Quattro have got that wave image like fully down.
No,
and to go full circle, that is why Mr. Polakow was just signed for Quattro. So there we go.
Yeah. Yep. No. All right, Benny. Well, hold on. What are we here? Hold on. One other comment here. Guess for future shows, can you get the gent that windsurfs with one hand using harness lines in Antoine Martin?
I've seen that. I remember posting his video because I was just mad impressed. It's like
what he's physically
I actually thought he had a hook. Isn't there a guy in Sardinia, or maybe my brain, I see so many videos and stuff over the years, but I seem to remembering one. He was ripping, like proper ripping.
Yeah, right. Okay. I think there's a lot of interesting characters out there in the windsurf world, which we'll hopefully discover over time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Like I say, stay tuned to the channel. We will be doing the windsurfing quiz at some point, and we'll try and do it the same day every week. I've just got to liaise with Paul exactly which day is best, or we might even do it before one of these ones. Let's see, but it'll be a separate video.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks very much to all of you for listening again, because I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but with your enthusiasm and encouragement, I get excited to do this. So thanks so much, guys, for your positive comments and contributing.
And follow him on Instagram.
Oh God, yeah. Now I'm an influencer, as you can see now. So.
You're an influencer, mate.
All right, Benny.
All right, dude.
See you guys. Yep. See you guys. Bye.
It's that time of the week again. Sit back, relax, we got the brain of band. No need to stress in the house, it's Van Bellen. The game is windsurfing, you can't yell them or tell them. We get the news, the views, the win biz. The brand's gear tips plus the world's best quiz. Cars PWA, we're professionals without the pay. There's nothing in pole dancing that we won't chat. From tandem boards to a windsurfing cat. It's your one-stop shop for a laugh and listen. Tune in each week or you'll be doing the missing.